paying as much as you possibly can. Now, when we were in Orland Park, literally we tell this story all the time that we hired people at minimum wage, rate 25, and if they were big and bad and had management potential, $8.50, baby.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Cowan. This is my beautiful wife, Brianna Cowan, and we are the co-hosts of the Fire Ready Aim podcast. So it's episode 4. Can you believe we made it this far? Oh my gosh. Well, today we are talking about something very exciting, which is business advice. So the best business advice we've gotten and the worst. So because we're super positive people, we need to start with the worst. Let's get into it, you know?
We were talking about that as we were thinking about this concept, and we came up with the 3 best and a couple worst. We're like, which one should we do first? I'm like, what does the news always lead with? Bad news.
Yeah.
You got to lead with the bad stuff.
So let's do
More
it.
interesting.
Let's talk about
Everybody likes to watch
stuff.
a car crash.
And the funny thing about this, everybody has a different experience in business, so in entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
The bad
The
advice.
only one that matters is ours.
Yeah, well, to us. Yeah, that's for sure. But everything, some of these worst things to us was actually good for other people.
Touché.
So it's like, this is not one size fits all sort of thing. So,
That's true.
take it with a grain of salt. But our first example today is do not buy your real estate, which is hilarious because the best thing we ever did in business was buy our building in downtown Lamont, Illinois.
Yes.
It totally put us on warp speed for growth.
Yes. Agreed. I specifically remember, it was actually shocking how many people, it was almost after the fact, I think, that we already bought the building, how many people told us, you shouldn't have done that. I was like, excuse me? There was someone at the Pizza Expo, which is, if you can believe it, a conference about pizza in Las Vegas.
Which is
every
awesome,
year.
by the way. That's when we
It
got
is
our
awesome.
kind of educational journey started in the
Yes.
restaurant industry.
Yes.
We started going, our first year was 2011, and I would say this is probably 2015 or 16 we heard this information.
I feel,
I think it was before we bought the building, to be honest. We
It
were
might
kind of
have been
looking
before.
into the process of it.
Yeah.
And this lady, I remember this conversation. I remember
Yes.
even where we were in the hall when this lady.
I do too.
Isn't that weird? Yeah.
That is weird. But we stopped and talked to her. I don't even know who she was or how we brought this up. But I remember thinking she's more successful than us. She had 2 or 3 restaurants and we had 1. And we were eating humble pie because we probably still weren't making any money back then. And
Well, our restaurant at that time was probably doing 10 times less than what it does per year now.
yeah. And I was,
So it's like anything anybody else said is like, you are smarter than me.
Yes.
I cannot figure this crap out.
Yes.
So it's like we were all
You
ears
knew
to
it.
everybody's opinions.
Yes, that's true, which is good. Be receptive, but you do have to kind of filter things out. Not all advice is good advice. And I remember her specific reasoning for us not getting into real estate was don't do it because you might have to replace the water heater. I was like, that's it.
Well, in
What?
hindsight now, looking at the grand scheme of things and owning our building now for more than half a decade, a water heater? Are you kidding me?
I know.
It's kind of a joke,
I know. She was like, it's so great. It goes out. My landlord replaces it. I don't have to deal with it.
No skin off my back. It's like,
And I was
okay.
like, yeah, but he's charging you exorbitant rent, and he's only going to increase that rent over time.
But to be fair, in certain situations, you might get lucky. We had a great landlord when we first started in business.
That's true.
Al owned a plumbing company. He's just a salt of the earth, small business owner, good dude.
Yep.
He saw me as a 20-year-old kid getting into business, and he was like, I was always late on my rent every month, and he's like, this idiot just can't get together. That's probably what he's thinking, but he's also gave me grace because I was so young. But then, at a certain point, Al decided, I want to sell the building. Mm-hmm. He ended up selling to a family trust, and a property manager ended up not being a big fan of him. I finally got to the point in business where it's like, I have automated payments for rent, and I pay it on time for the first time in my life, you know? And then we have a bad landlord, rent goes up, the guy treats you like crap, and you're like,
Yep.
This sucks. So at a certain point, when we saw our lease was up, coming up in Orland Park back in the day, we're like, we need to cut out that middleman.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's always the risk of not owning a real estate is you could have a good landlord today.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that's going to be the situation forever.
So, side
And-
note, something to do if you're in a business like us where you do need a physical location. And this is information, a tip given to us by mentor and friend Francesco Mara from the Mara Forni company. He's like, get a first right of refusal on your lease. If the owner of the place you're leasing decides they want to sell, you have that clause in there. There's you get the first right of refusal to the deal. You could buy the building yourself.
Yep. And that's actually, if it is, banks are weird, and especially if you're starting your first business and you do need a physical location, it might be hard to get lending for that unless you have kind of this like personal wealth you've built up. But in that situation, that would be a good way to kind of dip your toes in. You're getting the lease, started, and then moving on to real estate ownership.
And to be fair, this first thing, which was worst advice, in the beginning would have been the best advice for me. There's no way I could have owned a building in the beginning. I needed to have that lease in place where it's like, at least I don't destroy my whole life, if I screw up.
But one of the biggest and like kind of one of the turning points for us kind of learning this, even though we had a bad landlord, what did we do? When we were looking at expanding our location, we looked at leased locations.
We didn't know better.
And the person that we were, really talking with, he has become a friend now, Mike
Mr.
Coogan.
Palos Heights,
Yep.
Mike Coogan.
We love
awesome
him.
Dude.
We were in this negotiation for the lease, and we're starting the plans, and we're seeing what it's actually going to cost to open a restaurant there. And I'm like, my God, we are going to put so much money in someone else's building that if he does decide to jack up the rent, I can't walk away from all the money that I just put in there.
Absolutely.
So that kind of got us thinking, and he kind of became a mentor to us, and he was like, I own a bunch of real estate. Real estate ownership's great. This is what you got to do. And eventually we were like, Mike, you were too good to us. You taught us too much. We need to back out of this deal. We want to own our building. And he was like, good on you. Proud of you. And he was gracious enough to give us our deposit back. And
freaking one of the best people I know.
100%.
Like he's so instrumental. We don't talk to him enough to let him know how instrumental he was in.
We're gonna send him this.
Yeah,
episode.
definitely, Mike. I'm sending you this episode. So you're the man. Thank you so much. So next thing was we started a Entre Leadership Mastermind group.
Yep.
It was like we were always trying to find new communities and stuff where we can learn, and this is one we were at that point. And a big thing in that organization is like, don't get into too much debt with certain things.
Don't get into any debt.
Don't get into any debt. And I'm all on board for having low amounts of debt, but
or almost no personal debt.
Do our best with that. We haven't had a car payment in over 11 years, you know? So we do live a lot of that, but I'll tell you what, having some debt on a building like we have, like I'm okay with it. So what did the person say?
I specifically remember this was definitely after we bought the building, and she said that was a terrible mistake. You should have waited to buy that building in cash. And I said, you are insane.
At the point of how much money we were making every year, we would still be renting, right? If something didn't go completely wrong along the way to save up the amount of cash. And also, by the time we had that amount of cash, like we bought the building for a certain amount, it's already worth 3 times more than when we bought it in 2017.
Exactly.
And now it's 2024.
Well, and to give you a little bit of insight into real estate, if you were looking into it, I think this is everywhere, the mixed use thing. So we have our commercial space. Maybe not.
It's definitely a Cook County thing in Chicagoland.
So cool. Yeah. Cool if you're in a very specific area. But for us, we have this kind of like mixed use tax rate. So that means that we have the commercial space on bottom. That's where our restaurant is. And then we have 4 apartments that we rent up on top. It keeps our tax rate really low. But it also, it contributes to what we pay effectively for our mortgage. And so we have rental income from up above, and then our business pays basically whatever we decide to have it pay in rent. But effectively, if we were just paying our mortgage, it's how much? What's the difference between our mortgage and the rental income as it stands today?
Basically, it's about $1,000 every month.
Okay. So we were, this is the insanity of real estate, when people are like, don't do it. If you can do it, if you can figure it out, you should. Because we were renting a little space, no dining area, It was a horrible location in the middle of a strip center, just no visibility. And we were spending $3,600 a month.
$3,600 a month.
For how much square feet? 1,400?
Man, it's been a long
I feel like
time,
it was
but I think it was either
1,400.
1250 or 1480, one of those two numbers.
Okay, I'm feeling like the 1,400. So that, and now we have 60 seats. So we do a lot higher volume, and we have 2,200 square feet. Not that much bigger, but we do have a lot more space for dining. And
considering we had 4 stools before, yeah, so
yeah,
it's a lot.
And
more.
we're paying a third, like almost just 25% of what we used to pay
In a more desirable downtown, cute little area, as
Yeah.
opposed to a crappy strip center in the corner of town.
Yeah. So if you want to like skyrocket what you're pulling from your business and what your business is effectively profiting, meanwhile, haven't noted what he just said, the business value, the real estate value has increased.
Absolutely.
And around us, people are getting their rent for their square footage increased year over year over year over year.
Absolutely.
Our space would probably rent for, if we were to put it on the market, $8,000 or $9,000 a month. We're getting it for $1,000. That's
basically,
insane.
Effectively, after some creative math and stuff like that.
Yeah. But I think that just shows the power of kind of like owning the real estate. And yeah, we've had to replace the water heater, and do a couple things here and there. But I think a lot of that is scare tactics. Honestly, there's no reason not. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say one thing that's difficult about business is like when you're starting, you're just trying to like claw. You're trying to just figure out, how do I stay alive? How do I sell a widget, whatever it is? At a certain point though, it's like the smartest people I know in business are just like creative. They just like, how do I go about it a different way? How do I think about it from 8 different directions?
Mm-hmm.
I think about our friend Al Swice. Like he's just creative like that when we're doing business deals with him. Friend Mike Oliver. Just like how he thinks about things. I'm like, dang man, if I had a brain like yours, man, I would have 30 locations that wouldn't paddle open at this point.
Yeah.
So anyways, on to the next thing. So
more worst advice. So
worst advice.
First worst advice we got, don't buy real estate. Second is
that salary is too high. You're overpaying. Mm-hmm. And again, every situation is different.
Yep.
And I would say some people look at.
But I would say.
Yeah.
I don't want to say this is like generic advice that does apply to everyone, but I feel like in general this is a good kind of rule of thumb because we have seen the opposite too.
Absolutely.
Like the effects of not necessarily overpaying for everything, maybe for key positions, but this was basically our bankers as they're looking through our financials. We are in growth mode. We brought on certain positions that maybe, a little early to bring those people on, or they're more heavily compensated than, typical whatever for that role. And that kind of made them a little nervous. This was one of their questions for us, like, you seem like you have a lot of, kind of overhead in all these positions. Like, is that justified? And I think in general, our compensation philosophy is to pay fairly, and if we can afford it, to overpay, because you're going to, you get what you pay for, truly. And I think you're just going to struggle, and we've seen people struggle when they're trying to, bottom of the barrel, this is what I can offer you.
Honestly, like, I'm excited growing this company right now because like I want to make there more margin so we can even be more comfortable in paying people even better wages. That's always a goal. But it's just interesting seeing different situations where people are just like, this is the industry standard, I'm going to try to get 5,000 less than that, and I'm just going to see and just like, I don't know, I want it to be like we're both winning. People on our team are both coming up with us, know, and that's more fun. And I feel like there's more like there is a sort of respect from people when it's like, I'm getting a fair wage, what I believe I'm worth,
exactly.
or at least you can tell we're trying at least.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think it has a lot of benefits. Like you are essentially, when you're looking for, somebody in a certain role, you are kind of marketing that position, and you're going to get kind of what you pay for. Like there is a difference between going to Whole Foods or going to Aldi. Like there is a kind of a quality difference. So that's the same thing almost Now, I will preface that with if your hiring process sucks,
Absolutely.
you're going to overpay and have a crappy person in the role. But if you're good with your hiring, you feel like you have that nailed down and you can get good people in. I feel like overall it's worth kind of paying as much as you possibly can. Now, when we were in Orland Park, literally we tell this story all the time that we hired people at minimum wage, rate 25, and if they were big and bad and had management potential, $8.50, baby.
And I just think about
All
all the
day.
people over the years. We were able to hire some amazing people over those years, but it was also a revolving door after 9 months or a year
Yeah.
because, like, they're freaking awesome. Of course, they're going to go on and get more money from a better
Exactly.
company. We sucked at that time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I think what kind of held it together at that point was like our culture was fun. We were working in the business. We were very like in tune with what was going on with people. So I feel like that kind of held it together. So it's not a situation when you're in a startup, you can't afford it, and I wouldn't suggest that you like overpay people to the point of being non-profitable because you need to take something home. So you can kind of weasel around that to start. But when I feel like when you're growing, it is worthwhile to bring on the right team members because what you're going to see, anecdotally, we do have a friend who kind of has the opposite compensation philosophy. He tries to pay as little as possible, and it's not because he's not making money. He's definitely making money. He just doesn't want to dole it out. And so we are on opposite sides of the spectrum with that. What we have seen is he is stressed out.
Super stressed.
He can't find people. The people that he does find are stressed out too because they're stretched thin trying to do too many things. And he's like one person away from losing control of everything. Like if he goes down one more person, his business might shut down. It's like such a sticky situation. I wouldn't want to be in that situation. And I feel like that has a lot to do with like how you compensate people, how you treat people. So we're on this side of things.
Absolutely. On to the next one. If you're not there, everything's going to go to crap. You know?
Yeah.
I definitely got that. You know, I used to be the person in the restaurant who would walk around and touch tables and, you know, talk to every person. And it was kind of cool because I've gotten a lot of life advice through those things. You know, one little rabbit I'll chase is like, and I'm really thankful for it. I asked people after having kids, what's one thing a piece of advice you'd give me about having children? And they said, oh, it goes really fast. Don't miss it. Make sure you respect that time. And that's like one of my biggest things because I went from working 70, 80-hour weeks to now working a more reasonable like 30 to 40 hours a week, right around there. But anyways, on to this thing right here. So
yeah, I feel like that was advice we got, and it was kind of as we were drawing ourselves out of the business. And in the business world, the big thing everyone talks about is work on your business, not in your business. Well, we had been in our business forever. Like we were literally working in the kitchen, working on the line, prepping, all that stuff. And so we were chronically in it, and then we kind of grew to a point where we had the opportunity to hire a manager and get a little bit out of it. And the amount of people that were like, oof, like your business is gonna go down. Like if you're not the face of the restaurant, if you're not there every Friday and Saturday night, like people aren't gonna, want to visit. You're not gonna grow.
And I would say like people have still said, well, it's not the same because you're this or that. And it's like, all I can do, all we know about business is that if we're not climbing a ladder in our own company, how can I tell anybody else, like, hey, this is what's going to happen? You're always stuck underneath me. I own the freaking company, right? You know, so that was
there's no career path for you.
What's the career path?
It's like, oh, do you want to just like morph into me?
And also at the same time, we've noticed, since trying to put the right people in the right places, that our weekly sales have gone up, the profitability has gotten better. We can ask people if we give them less things to manage. It's like, all right, well, dial in on this. You need to get better at this and this. Yeah, it's been kind of a good thing.
Well, and it's like one of our company core values is being scrappy. That's because we have this entrepreneurial mindset. We want other people that have that mindset, and it's this kind of like get it done. So yeah, if you want me to be dishwasher and server and bartender and manager, I can do it. John can do it. We have no fear of doing those roles. We've done all of those roles. But at the same time, it's like that's a very kind of dangerous place to live and be stuck in, because you won't be able to grow. Like
Yeah.
it would just, you're just chronically stuck there. And I think too, I'm not the best cook or bartender or manager or dishwasher. I can do all of those things because I'm
You are probably the best pizza stretcher, though.
legitimately, like, I feel like I still
Seriously,
am.
started riding bicycle. She can walk back into that kitchen and beat anybody and have a perfect stretch. It's amazing.
That's true. But for a lot of those other roles, I think, especially entrepreneurs, we get so like high on ourselves. Oh, I'm really good at, XYZ in my business. I've done it forever. No one can do it better. That's a freaking lie. There's so many people who can do it better than you. And if they're focused only on that and they're passionate about only that and it's their unique ability, they're probably going to do a better job. Like you have just you have this, like, you've created this fantasy world of I'm the best at everything. There's something you're really good at, and it's probably in pieces of that. So like dishwashing, I actually love.
It's cathartic.
It is cathartic
reliever.
because you don't have to think. It's just like do. And what I love about that kind of translates to just owning a business is it's like immediate results. Like I was able to wash a rack of dishes, they come out clean, they keep coming, and I was just able to get results. I love that strategically in business.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what that boils down to is like, things could get worse if John's not walking the floor, but things could get better.
Honestly, yeah.
And
I
they
enjoy
have.
doing that, but honestly, there are people who just like are 10 out of 10s at that.
Yes.
And I'm taking away the opportunity for them to thrive in our company.
Yes.
So
And we have like lived to see the day of us being fully removed from the day-to-day operations, and things are better. So do not believe that if you're kind of in the day-to-day right now, that you removing yourself and working on the business, working on the growth side of things, that your business is going to go to crap. It's not.
absolutely.
You just have to be strategic about it. But
Well, we've gotten through the worst. Now let's get to some best things.
Yes.
Best piece of advice we've gotten. So the first one is one that I got when I first started in business. 20 years old, I went to a guy named Dick Clemens at my church. And I said, you own this successful construction company. Can I bring you out for coffee and, just pick your brain? So I remember he said yes graciously. And he brought me out and we started talking about, I asked him, you have a successful business. How do you do it? Like, what's the secret? Like, there's some sort of secret. He just looked at me. He's like, it's as simple as the golden rule. Treat people how you want to be treated. And honestly, at the time, I was like, yeah, old man. Like, what are you? I'm sure there's something much better than that. But when I look back at like 15 years, or coming up with basically 16 years of owning a business now, like when I look about how I can sleep at night because we try to live by that all the time. I love being able to sleep at night. I love being able to like look at anybody in the company and be like, I don't think I've done anything wrong to you, And don't get me wrong, we do things that are wrong. We make mistakes, but at the end of the day, it's nice to have that baseline foundational thing of this is what I'm attempting to do, is to do the right thing and how I treat people how I'd want to be treated.
yeah, I thought that was like such interesting and fantastic advice that you just boiled down into like one sentiment. And I think probably because he was older and had been in business for a long time, that's all he needed was that, because it's such a good decision filter. You do something wrong, you provide a bad product or bad service, treat someone how you'd want to be treated. Your employees, something happens to them that's out of their control, and maybe they are living paycheck to paycheck, and you can help them out, treat them how you'd want to be treated. It's a very easy way to, like, over any decision you have to make, you have that filter. On the other side of it, you're probably going to make the right decision because you have that filtering mechanism.
And honestly, this is not like, people always say, well, if I was rich, I would do this. Well, that's just not how life works. You need to put the reps in when you are not successful doing the right thing, even if it freaking screws you even more.
Yep.
I think back to when we were starting our catering business. There's a time where we were in between storage units for our mobile ovens. We have these mobile ovens we take all over Chicagoland and cater weddings now. At that time, we weren't really doing many weddings. It was more just like backyard parties, this and that. So we were we didn't have storage for it, so it was in elements. Rain was pouring on this oven. We hadn't had it lit up enough. The day of the event, I wasn't at the event. My little brother Timothy went out to do the event in Winnetka, Illinois, which is like an hour and a half away. It's raining the whole way there. He was trying to get this oven fired up, and it's very important to have a hot oven when you're cooking pizza. Mm-hmm. So he went up. Of course, is like an amazing attorney in Chicago's party.
Great
is the
impression.
one time in our company we've done over 500 events, and it was the one time we couldn't cook pizzas properly. We sucked it up that day.
And Timothy is truly like an oven whisperer.
Yes.
Like, that boy can light a fire in wind, rain, snow, all of it. And he was even like...
Couldn't do it.
I couldn't do it.
And it was like, oh, shoot, we're going to have to do this with the apps, figure out a way. I'm sure he got him some food that day, but he called me and said, we screwed up. Mm-hmm. This is bad. Mm-hmm. So what I had to do is get on the phone, customer service, figure it out with the person. And first, it's just... I went to her, I was like, what can I do? Well, you screwed up my day. There's not really much you can do. And it's like, dang. Well, what would it, like, she's like, send me all my money back. And I was like, done. Sending it back. And not only am I going to send your money back, I'm going to do the event on me to show you that we're not just some fly-by-night idiots who can't do our job. And you know what's really cool? From that person, I personally went to make sure it went off without a hitch. And Bree, you went to that one too.
Yep.
Went to the person's house. We had an awesome event. And she walked up to me afterwards and she's like, thank you for doing the right thing. I see you guys can actually do your thing. She handed me a stack full of $100 bills and it totally made up. I didn't expect anything, to be honest. Yeah. And things worked out. Now, it's not always going to work out like that she's an awesome person to be forgiving like that and give us a second chance. But, it's just kind of cool. It felt right. I can look back at it and be like, I did the right thing with that person.
Well, and it's like how many people would go, well, we did serve you some appetizers. Exactly. And we served, those salads weren't cooked, so we served that. So I'll give you 50%. It's like, is that how you would want to be treated? Like, you royally screwed up my event, and I'm pissed. And we can't go back in time. So how would you want to be treated? And that just made that decision easier. It's not a painless decision because we were broke and, that money was probably spoken for in some capacity. So now we're basically robbing Peter to pay Paul. But yeah, those decisions feel good. It's good to treat people with the golden rule.
Do the right thing.
Yep.
Awesome. You read this one, Bree.
So next, best advice we have gotten in business, different ways people have phrased it, but kind of the concept is that you are what you do, not what you say you'll do. And that is kind of the idea behind this podcast, Fire, Ready, Aim. We're action oriented. It's like, do something. Don't just talk about it. Be about it. God.
Absolutely.
And I think, that's kind of all of business because there's a million people who probably had the idea for Google and then somebody did it. Like, there's somebody, you've heard people, I had the idea for Uber or Airbnb or Chipotle or Netflix. It's like, who cares?
It's usually the old guy at the bar.
100%. And it's like, who cares? Nobody cares that you had the idea because you and a bazillion other people had that same idea and one person took action on that idea. So Who cares? Like, nobody cares. I love the quote, if knowledge was enough, we'd all be billionaires with six packs, but the magic is in the execution. It's Absolutely. Like, great, you know how to get healthy, but you're not. You know how to build this awesome business, or you have this idea for this awesome business, but you're not doing it. Nobody cares. Yeah. Like, it's all in the execution. Take action.
So I'd say, like, the big piece of advice to, like, all the friends who've asked us about things, because we get brought a lot of ideas, like, what do you think about this? Because we've had some sort of success with the entrepreneur life, is like, start making steps, start setting goals. Mm-hmm. What are you going to do? You're if you're going to wait for that perfect idea, you're just never even going to do anything.
Yeah. And that's kind of the interesting thing about ideas, because if our idea, our original business idea, would have come to fruition as we kind of thought about it, we would own a crappy fast casual pizza restaurant that was like going up against Blaze, which is also doing not well. Like
or Mod Pizza.
Or
You
Mod
know, like Mod
Pizza.
Pizza just closed like 20 locations by us, I think I heard.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, if we would have, it was nice not having money at that time.
Yeah.
We had no money, like very small amount of resources to flip our Chicago style pizzeria into the fast casual pizza we wanted to be.
Yeah.
But if we would have had an extra $250,000 at that time, we would have
Totally
opened
would've
an
done it.
awesome fast casual pizza
Yep.
for the time. It would have been
Yep.
cool for a year or 2 years. And all of a sudden it started going out of style.
Yep.
From that time, having those limited resources, it was like, awesome. We totally flipped gears in what we were trying to do a year into business.
Yes. And it was not because we had this like awesome idea for this original pizzeria. No, it was just that we have executed and then we've evolved and we've executed and we've evolved. We have the idea, we take action on it. It may or may not work out. We're not married to our ideas. We kind of go, hey, market, tell me if you like it. If you don't, I'll take it back. No problem. If you do, I'll make more of it. Like, you really don't know. And I think so many people are like, they keep their ideas like as these like precious things that like nobody, I literally, people talk about our recipes and I laugh when they're like, oh my God, is your marinara secret recipe? I'm like, I'd literally give you all of my recipes in my restaurant. I don't care because you're not going to go open this restaurant. You're not going to be able to execute the way I do. I don't care. I could be completely transparent pretty much about everything we do. And it's like, you're not going to take action on it the way I take action on it. You might not even take action at all.
Absolutely.
So
honestly, this goes into the next thing is be the business that would put you out of business. And when I think about,
I love this advice.
yeah, dude, like we're
I
not
love
trying to
this
put people out of
advice.
business. I just want to say that first. It's not as like scary as it sounds, like how
Yeah.
we think about it.
Yeah.
But you know, we are always trying to be a forward thinking in how we do things, and it's like great. Like I know, like every restaurant, I'm sure, can look at a competitor and be like, "Hey, they stole this idea from me." It was so funny one time seeing somebody on social media that I'm friends with, on social media at least, and seeing him complain about him somebody else stealing from him an idea. I was like, bro, there's something on your PDF on your website. Literally, you stole a picture of my pizza oven and photoshopped your oven over it, and you stole a few menu names. So don't ever complain about stealing because you're a freaking thief yourself.
It's like, you got.
So let me just say, on that note, it's like, bro, if you're stealing from us now, we're already planning the next year to 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Good freaking luck. You're behind.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the concept of this, it's not scary at all in my mind. It might sound scary, but it's really not because it's like, be the business that would put you out of business. So all you're doing is competing against yourself. You shouldn't be looking at your competitors and going like, what are they doing? What can I take from them? Because like John said, you're behind then. But if you're really innovating and you're thinking about, okay, what sort of business would put the business that I am today out of business? Who would open up across the street and take all of my employees because they're an employer of choice? Like
Absolutely.
They're a great place to work. Who would open up across the street and all of my customers would go, oh God, the service is so much better there. Food is so much better there. I'm going there. That is the type of kind of like internal competition you need to, be competing with yourself constantly, and you can't help but innovate if you think like, if this kind of business would put me out of business, why am I not doing that today? And some ways that we have implemented that. So we didn't have health insurance for the longest time. We were small. And when we were hiring our very first manager, we're like, we can't. I mean, I know other restaurants hire managers without health insurance, but if we want someone for the long term, if we want them bought in, we want to give them that level of stability, kind of a real job, we needed to offer health insurance, and that would be the kind of restaurant that would put us out of business. The restaurant that had health insurance for their employees, even though they, didn't meet those like corporate legal limits or whatever. So we got health insurance, and that's awesome because now we offer something to all employees, and not because we're this huge, McDonald's conglomerate. It's because we wanted to be an employer of choice, and that was an element of it.
Absolutely. Or another thing would be like we've brought on about half a year, maybe a little bit more, and she helps us produce this podcast. Tris,
Thanks, Tris.
a full-time marketing person. I'd say most companies at our size do not have a full-time marketing person on
No.
staff. But we're like, all right, well, I would be scared of a company, a restaurant around me that has a full-time marketing team going, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yes.
you know, we want to be that place that we would be scared of.
Yes,
You know?
exactly. So it's like, you know, it's kind of operating out of that mentality, but it's so good. It's so good to be there because you aren't looking for the, you know, the next thing that your competitors are doing. You are just really, that is true like innovation, and it is true competition against yourself. And that goes for you personally too. You really should only be competing against who you were yesterday.
Absolutely.
I'm not looking at the full gamut of like hot Instagram models to compare myself to. I'm going, do I look more fit and more healthy, and do I feel better than I did 2 months ago? I do. Okay, I'm making progress. That's a good thing. And that's the barometer for any level of success, personally or professionally, like who you were yesterday versus who you are today.
Absolutely.
So
another thing I would say is like not resting on initial success. You know, I say a lot of companies get to like a certain thing. They're like, made it, dude.
Yep.
Especially it's like it's actually a crutch when you're initially successful in
it's
small
a
business.
curse. I would actually say that if you are successful out of the gate, it's a little bit of a curse. We are thankful every day that we were losers.
Let me get that chip off your shoulder. That's where it comes from. It's like, oh man, how many years did we hear? Oh, you know, maybe you should just give up. Maybe you should just get a real job. Maybe like you're missing everything, this and that. Yeah, you should close this and that. You know, but it's like because of all that crap, all those scars and stuff, it makes us, you know, just look into the future and be like, all right, where are we slipping? You know, I've heard a story. Maybe you probably know this better, but it's like some guy talking to a billionaire who grew up on dirt floors and if you remember that probably better than me.
Yes, no, there was somebody who was looking to, like, they were a multimillionaire business owner already, but they were looking at a billionaire kind of as their mentor, and they're like, where does this like hunger come from? And honestly, this is probably unhealthy, but when he was younger, his family had nothing, super poor, literally slept at a dirt floor, and he has billions of dollars between him and a dirt floor, and he said, I am terrified of ever sleeping on a dirt floor again.
Yeah.
And I think for me, we have some of those stories because it was like we had moments where we were so depleted with employees that we were sucked into, you know, working these like 100-hour weeks that were untenable. Like I didn't even have time to catch up mentally with what I was doing physically. And so I kind of operate from a place of like, of fear with that. Like, I don't want to get, you know, sucked into that again. I think every entrepreneur probably has a healthy dose of fear for that, but also it's a little bit of that drive that like keeps you hungry. Like you want to be a better business than you were yesterday. Well, you don't have that glittering success from the beginning to kind of use as your milestone of like, I will always be a success because I opened as a success. Yeah. Like we don't have that. So it keeps us hungry. Absolutely. And honestly, if you're going to keep that innovation going, you kind of do need that level of hunger.
Well, you need it because there's so many big companies over the years that have just been on top of their game and this and that. And then 20 years go by and they rest on their laurels and they're gone.
You forgotten. Are obsolete. If you rest on your laurels, especially in like these kind of creative businesses, like restaurants are creative. There's new, you know, concepts and whatever coming out all the time. Good luck. Like 3 years of doing nothing, like no innovation, good freaking luck. I will see you out of business.
Well, people who are in our space right now, what's the epidemic right now of mom and pops? Been around 40 years. Mm-hmm. They're still handwriting tickets. They don't have inventory controls. There's using no softwares in the business. Now, in times of rampant inflation like we have right now, if you're not changing prices and what you're doing with things, your vendors are going to change it to you. If you're not raising your prices, you're going to go out of business.
Yeah.
Another business to look at is Blockbuster. Netflix came to Blockbuster and said, I want you to buy us. Blockbuster stuck up their nose. They were not being innovative.
Video stores will never die.
Yeah. I think there's still one open, possibly. I don't know. Blockbuster.com.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Yeah, so don't be those people.
Yeah. And it's hard to, like, there is some level of, you know, you can't avoid it. Like, there is some of that. I you know, the mom and pops, and there's some nostalgia to, like, some of those places. But I do really believe that if you want to grow your business, if you are not changing, you're for sure dying. And if you want to keep that innovation wheel going and spinning, think how would I put me out of business, and then take the actions that business would take.
Absolutely. Another thing I'd say, being that business that would put you out of business, would be like, we're constantly trying to grow the organization. How can we get specialized talent into certain areas? So, for us, it was like hiring a proper chef, hiring, just certain key positions in the company, and we, a great marketer, things like that.
Yep. So growing, definitely. So that's it. Best advice. Our kids are glancing at us out the window. We're coming. Give me a few seconds. I got business.
Let us
to
wrap
handle.
up this podcast episode. Come on, guys. Well, yeah. So those are our tips. Those are some worst things, some best pieces of advice. Honestly, this might be a thing we rehash in the future, because we're always getting good and bad advice.
Yeah.
But thanks for hanging out with us a little bit today. Please remember to we don't have the notes here, but like, comment,
us.
subscribe. If this connected with you, please share with a friend. Most likely somebody who has like that entrepreneur thing they're trying to scratch.
Yep.
But thanks for hanging out with us today.
There.